Hey, party people, let's talk about what creative directors do. And you know why I'm making this video? It's because Pharrell Williams is now the new menswear creative director at Louis Vuitton, and people are in their feelings about it. And by people, I also include myself. Okay, some people are real mad about it. Some people are saying it's not fair. Some people are sad. Some people are like, well, he's no Virgil. And some people are excited and anticipating what he has to bring to the next collection because they think his personal style is hot. I personally don't think personal style has anything to do with design creation, but whatever. And I mean, it can, but also they're not really dependent on each other, but whatever. Anyway, a lot of people have a lot of feelings about it. And also a lot of people have sent me a lot of comments and questions about it. Like, what do creative directors do? Is it one of those things where they walk in and they're like, yes, no, also no? A little bit. Nothing is like what it's in the movies. Okay. So calm down. So it's not really like that, but creative directors are about making decisions and not necessarily sitting down to sew, okay? They don't sew at a machine. They don't cut patterns. They don't draw flats. You know, many creative directors know how to do these things, but once they get up to that kind of leadership position, they don't do those things anymore. If you've watched any of my fashion design process videos, then you know design process in the industry goes loosely like this, of course, different at every company. But first, they're at the top of a season, you know, there's inspiration, the mood board, the direction the collection is going to go for that season. And then the color story is chosen, the fabrics are chosen, and design motifs are kind of pooled so that you've got like a very cohesive look and theme going throughout the whole collection. Okay. And then upon that point is when individual garments are designed and samples are constructed. Now, when you're working for yourself, you're probably doing all those things. If you're working for a big fashion brand, then the creative leadership of that brand is the one that is coming up with the mood board, the direction, the colors, and the fabric. And then they issue that direction to the team who is doing designs of individual garments through sketches, through flats, all these things. Before, you know, they have design meetings and the best designs are chosen and sampling gets started, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, the creative director is the top of that leadership team that creates the direction for the collection. Direction of the collection. I want to say that a lot. They don't sew, they don't cut patterns, you know, they don't sit there and, you know, iron things themselves. CDs may or may not sketch. And this is kind of important because sketching for us in the fashion design industry, working in the design process, sketching is not for beautiful illustrations, but for communicating ideas. Sketching is a language, a universal language, and the clearest language to communicate ideas to somebody else. And so, you know, do not sit there, okay, keyboard warriors, and tell me this guy doesn't sketch and that guy doesn't sketch. I know there's more than one way to communicate. I am saying that sketching is a great language and tool for anyone who works in a visual medium like fashion to communicate with other people, especially considering what a global, international, multilingual industry fashion is. The thing is, what CDs actually require is vision, okay? They need to come up with an idea for not only where we're going for one collection, but the new direction that the brand is going to take. When you look at a brand, like let's look at Gucci, okay? And you look at how Tom Ford led Gucci and his look and his direction. And then you think about how it changed when Frida Giannini took over that role. It had a very different look. The color palette was different. And then when Alessandro Michele took over, again, it had a lot of the Gucci signatures, you know, working off the same archives of Gucci's 100-year history. But again, a different direction, emphasizing different things about the Gucci heritage. And so a creative director is going to come in there and try to develop their own signature in association with the brand, making their own stamp. Like Michele could not try to create a Tom Ford Gucci without being told that they were just a copycat. Okay, he had to make his own signature. And so creative directors, they have to have a vision. They have to have their own strong aesthetic, a real true feeling of self in their aesthetic and how it can merge with the brand, in this case Louis Vuitton, and bring it forward and make it modern or even look to the future. Now, when you have a brand as big, expansive, massive as Louis Vuitton, you not only have to think about the collections, the clothes, and the accessories, but you have to think about everything. You're shaping the whole visual story associated with the brand. And that includes the clothes and the accessories, the runway productions, the installations, art shows, pop-ups, other brand events, and advertising campaigns, marketing campaigns, artist collaborations like Louis Vuitton likes to do, the store designs, everything. Does that mean they're going to sit there and map out where all the mannequins go in a store, or where all the buttons are going to sit on a shirt? No. Okay? It's just sort of like the overall vision. Let's think about LVMH for a second, because there are different qualifications for creative directorships depending on the kind of brand you go to. Okay? I'm going to throw up on the screen some of the most well-known LVMH, Moet Hennessy, Louis Vuitton brands that are associated with fashion and beauty. Okay, they do a lot of other stuff like resorts and cruises and wines and alcohol, all different kinds of alcohol. But side story: when Louis Vuitton and Moet Hennessy were merging, they could not decide on whose name was going to come first, and that's why the conglomerate's official name is LVMH, Moet Hennessy, Louis Vuitton. So. Hiring a creative director for a brand like Kenzo is really different from hiring a creative director for Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton is the figurehead of the whole conglomerate. It's the most well-known, the biggest household name. It creates the biggest splash. And so, that brand by itself is under a lot of pressure to be the biggest, the splashiest, even if it means it has to be controversial. I mean, not Balenciaga controversial. That's a level nobody wants to get into. Okay, but there's power in the name, and there's they feel the pressure to continue to be a cultural powerhouse and to always be in the news and be avant-garde, not just in clothing style, but in culture and in how you do business, how you do collaborations. They always want to be on the cutting edge. So does that mean that hiring someone like Pharrell is their version of cutting edge business going into the future? Food for thought. Another question: why do we insist that someone with a fashion background be the creative director of a brand? Well, number one, essentially, it really all just sucks if the clothes don't look good. If the clothes don't look good, they're just not taken as seriously. People know that the accessories market is what keeps a fashion business, in the black. But still, it's the idea of the clothes looking good and that being the true indication of how in fashion they are. The runway shows featuring the clothes and accessories is the centerpiece around which everything else about the brand revolves. And people who work in fashion leading up to a creative directorship, whether or not you went to fashion school, that's another whole other thing. But, they have learned through the process of all these jobs and their job experience that they cultivate an eye for color, for proportion, balancing of textures. They have learned how to design, and they have learned how design leans on process and vice versa. They learn what things are possible. They learn fit tailoring, they learn how to recognize craftsmanship. Even if they're not able to actually sit on the machine themselves, they recognize it through years of looking at clothes in such a way that not all shoppers are able to recognize. Just because you shop a lot doesn't mean you recognize quality, and vice versa. I'm just saying that being like, I'm just around clothes a lot is not like a surefire indicator that you know about quality. So even if a CD isn't sitting at a machine or sitting in front of Adobe Illustrator doing flats, you know, they are running design meetings and fittings based on hopefully a foundation of knowledge that they are directing people in the right direction. Let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. We want people who we think deserve those top jobs in fashion to get those roles. And screw the fashion thing. Anybody who's working in any industry, they want those top jobs to go to people that they think deserve those roles because they've paid their dues by working, you know, lesser jobs and working themselves up. You know, this is why we don't like Nepo babies, because they get unfair advantages. Pharrell, for all what I know, is not a Nepo baby. He's making a lateral move, but it's the same kind of principle. You know, fashion people, they know how aggressive the industry is, how competitive the industry is, but they will, you know, accept and laud a creative director if they know that they spent 7 years over here and 8 years over there slogging through, fetching color cards and sitting in on meetings, taking notes as fast as they can, learning from the ground up and paying their dues, and you know, winning their way up through the ranks and getting that job. People respect the people who earn those, you know, those leadership positions. And then for this guy to make a lateral swoop into this big job, people don't like it. People think it's unfair. And you know what? I'm going to read you this excerpt from Robin Gibbon. She is a fashion journalist, and you all should follow her on Instagram and Twitter like I do. I'll drop her links in the description box below. But she articulates this better than I ever could, so I'm going to quote her. Williams follows the late Virgil Abloh, who was the first Black American to serve as artistic director of a French luxury brand. Abloh hadn't studied fashion design, but he had worked his way through false starts, fashion competitions, his own brand, DJing and collaborating until he grabbed one of the industry's few brass rings. He arrived at Louis Vuitton with a fan base that saw themselves in him. Abloh was groundbreaking. The choice of Williams is not. It feels a bit like a company trying to recapture a certain excitement and sense of change that was fueled by possibility. Maybe, just maybe, a door had swung open for other Black designers, and someone working away in a back room or struggling to keep their own company afloat could win the big job. But Williams was not struggling. He wasn't pounding away in the shadows. He was sitting in the spotlight wearing diamond bedazzled sunglasses and Chanel jackets. Okay. And she goes on to say, but okay, fine, life is not fair. Let's see what he comes up with come June when the menswear collections are out. The press release did say that that was when he was going to show his first collection. So that is that. She really encapsulates a lot of my feelings on the matter, on how the hire of Virgil Abloh just really was different from what Louis Vuitton is doing now with Pharrell Williams. And the last question that I want to address today is someone asked, why does it always seem to be a man? Okay? And I have no idea. And that is this pod's rant of the day. You know, sexism, which is nuts because some of the most storied houses in fashion history have women founders like Schiaparelli, Chanel, Lanvin, houses that still exist and are often led, you know, by men at this point. You know, we have so many incredible women designers throughout history. the late Vivienne Westwood and Madeline Vianney, Claire McCardle, and even now, we are eagerly awaiting the return of such women such as Phoebe Philo, Claire Wade Keller, and, don't get me started with bad women CDs, okay? There are bad women CDs, there are bad women CDs, men CDs, and my point is that the gender is not that important, okay? There are good and bad of each gender, and a creative director's vision and voice are the most important things. And the people who come up with the best vision and voice have years of working in the industry, watching how trends work, how consumer trends go, how people latch onto trends, micro trends, non-trends, and they have developed a foundation of knowledge of working, whether in terms of what women want, what men want, how shopping works, how things should fit on the body, how we are looking into the future of fashion, sustainability, and all these things. But misogyny and sexism throughout the fashion industry is a whole other video. And, I see the fashion industry a lot like I see in cooking. I would say that most people, when pressed, would say that the best cook that they've ever met, the best food that they've ever had was, some delicious food made from their grandma, from their mom, from their auntie, or similar. And yet the top chef jobs go to men. And it's a little bit interesting how, something that's viewed as too feminine to take into a hobby on the basic everyday, level. Like, men are discouraged from learning how to cook. Men think it's beneath them to learn how to cook for themselves. Fashion is a girly thing. And, I get comments on my channel all the time about how, I'm a man and I had no idea making clothes was so complicated. Like, give me a break, okay? Hashtag not all men, whatever, okay? And yet, when it's the upper echelons of design, upper echelons of haute cuisine, all of a sudden, it's a man's job. And so anyway, there's the reason why Pharrell got the top job at Louis Vuitton menswear is not because he's a man. It's because they were looking for a cultural figurehead. And my whole thing is, if Virgil Abloh had done something wrong at Louis Vuitton and gotten fired, then Louis Vuitton would have been free to hire anyone, any race, any gender. And by that, you know what I mean. But because he passed away and left a legacy and people still mourn him, I think that they were pushed against the wall to think, oh, you know what? We have to hire someone similar to him to avoid backlash. And when that person fails, then we're free to hire whoever we want. Anyway, those are just my idle thoughts on the matter. So knowing what you know now, and even if you love Pharrell's music, and I enjoy Pharrell's music, this is not about his music, okay? This is a completely different thing, okay? Because if you're watching this, you probably like my videos, but would you like my cooking? I don't know. It's a different thing. It's a totally different thing, okay? Do you think Pharrell was a good choice for Louis Vuitton menswear? Okay? What do you think? What unique Pharrellness? What kind of Pharrell vision do you think that he will bring to Louis Vuitton menswear? Okay, that was a heavy rant and question of the day sort of section. Okay, so I would like to end on a lighter note. Okay, this is a funny, tiny little story that happened to me in New York 100 years ago. Okay, story of the day. So I was, what year was it? 2006. I was a finalist for a design competition, and they're like, you got to fly to New York, you got to come to the competition thing, and then designers in the industry we're gonna put up all your design boards, and then they're gonna be on display at this event, and designers around the industry in New York are gonna vote on the 5 finalists, and the winner will be announced that evening. And there were like other segments and there were other things happening. So it wasn't just like my segment. So I was one of the finalists. You know, I shipped my design boards over and they posted it and it was great. And I ended up winning. I won $10,000. I got some mentions in Women's Wear Daily. It was really nice. It was super fun. And I went to the event. It was at the Hammerstein. And that was back when I still smoked. Okay. Listen, I quit in 2008. Okay. Don't come at me. It's terrible. But anyway, back then I still smoked. So after they announced the winner and, you know, everyone is like more mingling and just hanging out and enjoying the drinks and everything, I had stepped outside with my friends to have a little cigarette on the sidewalk. Like there was like a little corded off section that was the smoking section out front. And we're just out there just relaxing. And I was just feeling like there was the whole like stress and anxiety of maybe I'll lose, I'll flown from California all the way to New York only to lose. And that would have been so depressing. But then I won and then nobody told me I had to prepare a speech. And so I got up there and I was like, and I literally said, mad props to this organization for existing. And that was the quote they pulled at Women's Wear Daily. Mad props. What? Why am I saying dumb stuff like mad props? Okay, I was a child. I was a baby in the industry. And no one told me I had to prepare a speech. So I had to fly off the cuff. But like my friends made fun of me for mad props. Mad props to Jen Art for like years afterwards. But anyway. So I'm coming off that adrenaline high and I'm relaxing and people are congratulating me. And I'm out there having like literally chain smoking menthols out there, like an old lady. And out comes the guy who won the first season of Project Runway. Now, though you guys probably know that I don't watch Project Runway anymore, but I did watch the first 2 seasons. I watched them. Every single episode. And then after that, I started, you know, kind of really seeing it for what it is. And I had some problems with it. I'm like, I got bored with it. But I watched those first 2 seasons and I really enjoyed them. And so I recognized this guy from watching the first season. And he comes out and he smokes, whatever, and he's having a cigarette. And I don't know if you know, but like New York streets can be like, I don't know, like 8 lanes of traffic wide. Okay. You've got the little streets, but then you also have like the super big, you know, 4 lanes going this way, 4 lanes going that way in the middle of Manhattan. Right. And so there we are outside the Hammerstein smoking cigarettes. And this guy is like right over here. And he starts screaming at the top of his lungs. Ah! And of course, everyone just swivels and just like, who's being attacked? What is happening? And he's just like, and I'll never forget, he's like, look at that homeless guy over there. And we're like, oh no, what is he gonna say? What? He's like, look at that homeless guy over there. He's got more style in his little pinky finger than any of you witches here. And there was just like this dead silence, just like people milling about, and then it just was very, very quiet. And I thought something might, and I think if it were today, something more would happen. But literally, and this is one of the things I freaking love about New York. After that pause, literally everyone went back to smoking and talking to each other. I think he thought he was going to raise some kind of commotion. But I'm like, sir, this is New York City. This is Manhattan, okay? You're going to have to do more than that if you want to, really cause a fuss. Oh, but I still remember that moment. It was funny, but I was like, that is the most New York moment ever, okay? Not the screaming, but the whole like, back to smoking. Anyway, if you have any questions for me to answer in a future podcast episode, please drop them in the comment section below. So I don't know if you all heard, but YouTube has a new CEO. And I don't really know much about this new CEO, but and I don't know what's going to happen at YouTube. Things might be, whatever, same old, same old. This new CEO might decide to make his mark by taking things into a new direction, kind of like how I was describing how creative directors, they need to take the company into a new direction to make their mark on it. And listen, I don't think that anything's going to happen to my channel, but nobody thought Vine would fall apart. Nobody thought Tumblr would go the way it did. And nobody predicted that Twitter would go the way it did. So better to be safe than sorry. If you are on Instagram, please follow me on Instagram. And if you haven't, please sign up for my newsletter so that we don't lose each other in the foray that is internet madness. I'll drop the links in my description box below. Follow me on whatever social media platform that I have out there. I am going to try to make more TikTok content. Although, with the government being the way it is, that might fall apart. I don't know. This is why they keep saying diversify, right? Anyway, so as usual, please like this video if you learned something new today. Share, subscribe, all the ways you show me love. And I will see you in the next video.